Hey everybody, I'm Sierra,
And I'm Ben.
and welcome back to another episode of The Unsolved Couple, where every week Ben and I recap one of the original gateway drugs into true crime.
Unsolved Mysteries.
All right, babe.
Week 11.
Here we are, week 11. We've made it thus far. And things are, going pretty good.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm having fun.
I'm having a lot of fun.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're having a lot of fun. You are so believable when you said that,
I was going to
too.
say, is that convincing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, dear.
No, so we are talking today about season 1, episode 11 of Unsolved Mysteries. And this episode was interesting.
Golly, your cat.
I
Every
know.
time.
The hairless cat is...
The one
we
that's...
are in the midst of our 48 hours of fall.
Yes, but...
And he doesn't do well when the temperature drops. So he gets very anxious in the evening time about finding a warm spot to be.
But there's something about this, too. Like, he sleeps all day.
Yeah.
All day. But the minute we start doing this, he has, like, this anxiety. And it's just all over the place.
Yeah. In all honesty, if you and I were just like laying out in the living room right now watching TV, he would be nowhere to be found.
But he's like up in my business right now.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, no, we're in our 48 hours of fall before we snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, that's 2 Eminem references, I think, 2 weeks in a row.
I don't know that one.
You don't know that song from? Yes, you do. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Yes, from 11 Mile.
Okay. 8 Mile? Not 11 Mile.
Yeah. So 11 Mile. What is that from? Okay. Anyways.
All right. Hey, come on.
I know.
Focused
Sorry.
here.
48 hours of fall. We've got to enjoy beautiful, cooler weather. It's been in the upper 90s and lower hundreds for months. And starting literally tomorrow, we're back in the 90s. And
it's miserable.
It is. I'm trying to enjoy. I've got a cozy sweatshirt on. I look like a homeless person right now. I've got an oversized sweatshirt on. I've got oversized sweatpants. I'm wearing all the layers because I just want to feel cozy for a little while.
Yeah.
But
us saying it's fall means it was 75 degrees today.
Yeah.
It was fall. That was our fall.
I guess that is true. It was 75 today.
It was nice.
It was beautiful. So,
all right, let's not talk about the weather. It's like...
I know.
It makes me angry. Plus, it's like the most boring topic in the world.
People are already tuned out. They're like, is this a podcast?
Yeah,
where that shows your age where you start just talking about the weather.
You know, when you call someone, they're like, so how's the weather? You know that conversation, it's not going anywhere. If that's your conversation, like, how's the weather where you're at? Like, so we got nothing. We got nothing?
We got nothing.
Yeah. And that's where, like, I'm 100% tuned out of conversations.
I'm bitter about it right now.
Yeah.
So I wanted to vent about it for a minute. So this episode this week that we're talking about was kind of a lot.
This was a lot.
I feel like I want to give a disclaimer up front that I have 15 pages of notes.
I don't know why you have 15 pages of notes. That's ridiculous.
There's 4 stories tonight, and a couple of them are kind of confusing. They might be a little bit there's just a lot. It was a heavy episode.
Yeah, I would say there's at least 2 stories that are a little heavy.
And I think they're the 2 that I'm covering.
Yeah, the 2 you're covering.
That's why I have 15 pages of notes.
Yeah. I am covering the easier ones because that's what we do.
So let's let me pull up my notes here, and then let's just dive in because I don't want this to run too long, but I do want to give valuable time to some of these stories that I think we've got some things that we need to cover and talk about. And I'm interested to hear your sort of take on some of these things. So our first story at the top of the show is about a girl named Jenny Pratt.
This is a sad story.
Spoiler alert.
Well, I guess, I mean, is anyone like, oh, I love this story when it comes to...
Well, the story about The Rock was pretty fun.
That's not a true crime story. That's actually a BS story. I mean, if we really want to get back into that one.
But Unsolved Mysteries is more than just true crime. They usually they've got the paranormal. We've done UFOs. Like, I'm sure Bigfoot's going to make an appearance at some point.
He better not. I'm going to be so pissed if I have to look into Bigfoot.
I'll be jazzercised for it. I love Bigfoot.
No. Oh, my gosh.
Okay. But yeah, so fair warning, this is a sad story.
Yeah.
In every aspect.
All right.
So,
sorry, I'll let you get into it.
Yeah. The show starts us off introducing us to 16-year-old Jenny Pratt. She was Southern California, beautiful, right? Blonde hair, tan, the whole 9 yards. She had hopes of becoming a model. She was in her sophomore year of high school in Carlsbad, California. But like most teenage girls, the thing that mattered to her the most was her boyfriend.
What?
I know.
I thought you were going to say her schoolwork. That's what mattered to her the most.
So her and Curtis Croft had been dating for a year at this point. And according to her friends, she was deeply in love.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
Like all high school kids believe they are. Yeah. So he drove a Porsche, had plenty of money.
He drove a Porsche?
Mm-hmm. Just shut up. I just put that together. I don't want to hear it.
How did you not see this coming? How did you not see me bringing this up?
Now you have to give some context to people.
I'm not going to give them context.
You cannot make an inside joke on a podcast. I have an ex-boyfriend who drove a Porsche.
Her boyfriend before we dated had a Porsche.
Yeah, we'll leave
and she liked to tell me about it a lot while we were dating.
I did not tell you about it a lot. Okay, in all reality, he drove a Porsche and Ben drove like a 1980 Toyota pickup that was a beat to heck.
Hey, I love
it's
that.
Just a funny compare and contrast. Anyways, yeah, sorry. I guess I walked right into that one. I did not even put that together.
It was like girl falls in love with a boy that drives a Porsche.
Anyways, he was a good-looking sort of California surfer.
Yeah, I loved how they.
I know I did not come up with that description. That is solely from.
They literally say he's a California surfer boy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's how they describe him.
So we get the B-roll of, this couple leaving the high school steps, getting into a red Porsche, and then we cut to Jenny's mother, Diana Storm. She said that she didn't have actually any idea that her daughter was even in a relationship until 6 months into them dating. When Jenny casually mentioned to her that she had a 17-year-old boyfriend. Initially, Diana thought Curtis was nice and did a really good job. And I'd never heard this term before, snowing her. Have you ever heard that before?
No.
I'm guessing, because we learned later some things about him, that he was not honest with his girlfriend's mom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we have another.
She thought that he did look 17. Dun, dun, dun. Later, we find out he had not only was he 24 years old, but he had a criminal record and had been to jail for drugs.
Not just drugs. Cocaine. Selling cocaine.
Yeah. Hence why
or possession
a
of
20-something-year-old has a Porsche.
But also, dude, she's 16.
Mm-hmm.
Again, another one of these weirdo, inappropriate
you are 24 years old. Go find a girl your own age.
Even there's still girls that are legal.
Yeah.
That can be younger than you. I don't know.
And I didn't write this down, but I was reading somewhere because they didn't go into this too much on Unsolved Mysteries. Jenny's parents tried to actually forbid them from seeing each other.
Let me guess, that didn't go well.
It didn't go well. It got to the point where she was even isolating from her friends, and she actually told her group of high school friends that she actually didn't want to have friendships with anybody anymore because the only friendship and love that she needed in her life was her boyfriend.
I wonder where she got that idea.
Yeah.
From her grooming
Maybe
boyfriend?
from her grooming boyfriend. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So,
moving
anyways, because when you're watching this, it seems like all of a sudden just they weren't happy with it, but they continued to date. However, from the research I could find, they did try to put a stop to it. However, it didn't seem like that was helping the situation at all.
It was making it worse?
Yeah.
A teenager being told they can't do something, they then try harder to do it?
Yeah, and when you've got the 24-year-old not being the adult in the room who has access to money and drugs and a car, what are you going to do? Thankfully, our kids are not that age yet. I don't know what I would do. It would be a terrible situation, and I don't want to judge any parent that...
I'm not throwing judgment on the parents.
Doesn't know
I'm
what
just
to
saying,
do in that situation.
Here we are, again, terrible things happens, and a lot of this stuff starts with inappropriate relationships of... here's the thing. This story, it wasn't new back then, and it's still going on today.
Yeah, this is a tale as old as time.
All right.
So, however, against her parents' better wishes, Jenny went out with Curtis on the night of April 25th, 1987. He had borrowed a friend's motorcycle and promised Jenny that he would get her home before her midnight curfew. She never arrived home that night. At 11:55, while her and Curtis were stopped at an intersection in Carlsbad, someone from a passing vehicle struck her in the back of the head, with a heavy 6.5-foot long wooden board. The police believe that her assailants may have been some local teenagers. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just awful.
At 1 a.m. on the night of the attack, Jenny's stepfather, Gary Storm, and her mom, Diana, received a telephone call. Jenny had actually been airlifted to a nearby hospital, Scripps Medical Center in La Jolla. I do love La Jolla. It's a great area.
It is a beautiful...
That's where we went kayaking for our wedding anniversary a few years ago.
Yeah, I know. It's beautiful there.
And Scripps is a big hospital down in California. They're all over the place. However, her mom and stepdad were kind of confused. They had been told that she was in an accident. However, they weren't given really any other information, but told that they needed to come down to this hospital in La Jolla. And she didn't even know where this hospital was. This is back before you could just Google it, right? Or even, remember what was that thing called? What was it called? The Norman?
Rand McNally? Maps?
No, I'd never used maps. Are you kidding me? Can you imagine me trying to read a map?
I know. We've had this conversation.
No, what was the Garmin? That's what it was called. Remember back before GPS was in your phones, you
tried to call Garmin Norman? You seriously just tried to call Garmin Norman? Are you just picking out random names?
They sound similar, don't they?
No.
Okay. I swore it was called a Norman for a minute.
Give me some directions, Norman. It's like a
Garmin. Okay, so for the children in the room who don't know what a Garmin is, on your phones now you have your Apple Maps and your Google Maps.
That was Garmin,
but you had to plug it in to your car, and it has a cable and a cord. It was this was an expensive contraption to have. It was a big deal. I swear for a couple Christmases in a row, it was the number one gift.
I know, we got one for Christmas. Your dad got us one for Christmas not too long after we were married.
Yeah, it was really helpful to have. Exactly. So this is back even before any sort of GPS was available to people in their car. So
technically, Garmin is still around. The GPS in our van is a Garmin.
I know, but no one uses that. Does anyone actually use their like GPS that's in their cars?
No, because we just plug it into our phone, and our phone connects to the car, and it takes us there.
Yeah.
All right.
So the reason why her stepfather and mother, one of the reasons they were super confused is there was actually a Scripps hospital really close to the Carlsbad area where the car accident had taken place. Well, come to find out, this specific hospital, this Scripps, was renowned trauma center, which only takes on like the most severe cases in Southern California.
Well, yeah, but like hospitals, they're rated on their trauma levels.
Yeah.
Like here in Tucson, we only have one, I think.
We have one trauma center here?
We have one, I think it's trauma 4. Any medical people out there, I'm sorry if I called that wrong, but yeah.
Yeah. So they were finally able to figure out where this hospital was. They arrived. Of course, no one at first would give them like any information. And shortly after sort of kind of getting them calmed down and into like a waiting room area, the head of like neurosurgery came in and said that Jenny was being declared brain dead and did not expect her to live more than a few hours.
Yeah.
I cannot even.
I can't imagine as a parent hearing that.
No. Miraculously, you guys, Jenny survived and lapsed into a deep coma. Like, this was mind-blowing to the doctors are interviewed on this. Like, this was just, it was a miracle.
Yeah.
Carlsbad Police Department started an investigation right away, but there was really little evidence to go on. There was no fingerprints. They found the blood-stained, like, wooden board. They determined that the blood on it was Jenny's, but that's kind of all they had.
You know, and just Curtis's explanation of what happened.
Mm-hmm. And Curtis was technically the only eyewitness to this event.
The convicted druggie.
Yeah. So he was interviewed that same day back at the police station. He said that basically he was giving Jenny a ride home. They were driving down the road, Rancho Santa Fe, and getting ready to make a left-hand turn. They slowed down as they approached the intersection. As they stopped in the left turn lane, out of nowhere, he felt something strike him in kind of like the back of his head. At the same time, a white pickup truck drove quickly past them. He turned around to Jenny to say that he thought someone had thrown something out of the car at him and noticed that she was slumped over and acting out of it. Realized at that point she was hurt. And they didn't say this, so I'm going to just make this assumption. I don't think they had helmets on.
Yeah. I think that's a safe assumption.
Okay, that's a safe assumption. Yeah, I could not find anything in my research whether they were wearing headgear or not.
The doctor pretty much says, like,
her skull was crushed.
He said it crushed her skull when they interviewed the doctor. Like,
yeah.
He's thinking, there's just no way. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say they weren't wearing helmets.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The police believed, just due to the nature of the crime, that this was kind of just a truckload of teenagers out goofing around and maybe didn't realize what they had done. And they kind of went with that theory. And they believed that the case would be solved quickly because teenagers have a tendency to talk when they commit crime. Today, they just record themselves and put it on Snapchat. So not much has changed in that world.
Or go live.
Yeah. And he actually felt very comfortable that the police would identify a subject in a short amount of time. But to date, no one had come to the police with direct knowledge of what happened that night. So, dissatisfied with the efforts of the police department, Gary and Diane hired a private investigator to look into this case. He interviewed a handful of students at Jenny's school who were also featured on the show. And they all believed, or at least the rumor at the high school is that this attack was actually meant for Curtis and not Jenny. And the friend says, quote, that she knows who nobody knows who actually did it, but she has a feeling that she knows who did it, but was not willing to come forward to say who was going to take responsibility. A very, word salad-y thing to say.
Yeah. A lot of assumptions.
Yeah. So, the detective interviewed said that there was a lot of people who did not like Curtis based on his background. In August of 1985, Curtis had been convicted for dealing... Confected for dealing cocaine. After cooperating with investigators, he served then less than half of his sentence and was released in February 1986. Oh, Ben, you just turned 1 year old.
Thanks for telling everybody how old I am. Golly.
So he basically developed a reputation being a snitch.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the 80s in the cocaine world. I was going to say, in Southern California.
World, as a snitch, probably not a good thing.
Not a good place to be known as a snitch. So basically, this guy had a large number of people who weren't his fan and would have had no problem confronting him or causing harm to him. In fact, the night before, Curtis had gone to confront one of his enemies. That's what they call him on the show.
His enemies?
Mm-hmm. Another teenager. Okay.
A teenager?
Yeah, he says a teenager and former friend.
I know. His age?
Please, yes. Red flag, you guys. He accused this kid of stealing possessions from his apartment and threatened to go to the police about it.
Threatened to snitch on him.
Yeah. And so it just sounded like that at the end of the day, between the private investigator and the local police, several people were after Curtis for quote unquote something.
No one knows what.
Yeah. However, the police investigation stopped cold when Curtis claimed he couldn't identify the predators. He said that basically the truck was driving too fast for him to see who it was.
Yeah.
Enter the private investigator.
He actually does seem like he does a decent job.
Yeah, I mean, so on the television show...
At least from what they show.
He is doing a reenactment of the crime scene, and they're driving a truck with two mannequins on the back of a motorcycle and driving at different speeds to try to see. Now, the problem is, those mannequins were like plastic. So a board hitting a plastic mannequin is going to be very different than hitting...
Yeah, I don't think they were... So to clear this up, they do the reenactment and they're looking for the injuries, right?
They're showing...
But I actually don't think that's what they're looking for. So the reenactment was done by the
private investigator because he believed at the end of the day that the truck was driving slower and that Curtis did know who was in that car. Yeah. And that's his main sort of thing, is that he redid the crime scene, and the only way the board was able to end up where it landed and where the injuries matched was driving very slow when they hit the back of her
head. Yeah, so he does the reenactment. They drive by with a truck at 50 miles an hour, because that's what Curtis says they were going at least 50 miles an hour. And they hit her and drop the board. And the board ends up 50 feet away from it.
Yeah, it ricochets way off of there.
Right? Mm-hmm. But the board, in reality, at the crime scene, because the board was still there that night, is literally right there where she got hit. And so they redo it. They do it a second time or whatever. They do multiple times. And the board lands in kind of the same spot at 10 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. And they were trying to say, if at 50 miles an hour hitting her with the board, it would have killed her and him and all that stuff. Here's the thing. I don't know.
Again, we don't have any of the scientific, how this was done
I'm not a scientist, and I don't think this guy is either. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't think what he was trying to do was, a bad thing. I think, he's at least trying to put some
But we get to the point where here's
together.
like the trifecta that we're having. The police have no more hard evidence to go any further.
They don't have anything
They
to
have
go on.
nothing to go on. We have the private investigator who is convinced that Curtis does know what happened and that he's lying. He actually coaxes, not a confession, but 3 names out of him. Curtis recants those later and says that he was just doing this out of pressure because this interview was done in his home, not recorded. And then we have the parents who are just desperate for some answers, but they keep feeling like anytime someone starts to come forward, the witness either disappears or says that they've changed their mind. And in fact, Diana said she believes that people have been paid off or threatened. She's seeing this as a much bigger thing.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't see it as a conspiracy.
I don't either,
but I don't know.
But I'm not a parent in that situation who just wants an answer.
But I will say, so this was the one thing, the police pretty much say, we don't have anything because Curtis says he doesn't. What at least the private investigator was trying to do, and here's the thing, I'm not a fan of private investigators at all, period. End
it's
of
a very unregulated.
I don't just the whole industry, we're anyways, but we're not getting into that. The whole point of what the private investigator was trying to do is he's got, okay, here's my witness and he's telling me this thing. I don't think he's telling me the truth. So let's kind of run some tests and let's find some things where maybe we can pin this guy and say, hey, we know you're not telling us the truth. We still might not know exactly what happened, but we do know that what you're telling us doesn't make sense and it's not adding up according to these things that we did.
Yeah.
I see what I'm saying is I see what he's trying to do, and it's not a bad thing. I do feel that is kind of what the police should have pushed harder. But again, where do you go from here? There's not a whole lot.
There's not a whole lot.
Know.
I don't think that any of these 3 individual sort of parties of people, the police, the private investigator, and the family, no one is obviously in the wrong. Everyone is grasping for straws. It seems like overall, desperately, everyone wants to find out what happened that night, to the point where the police even say they will not prosecute anyone that voluntarily comes forward and tells them what happens that night.
They literally say, if you were in that vehicle, but you're not the one that swung, you're safe. We want to know who swung that 2x4.
Yeah, that's a pretty big thing for police to come out and say.
But I think they're so desperate because literally they have nothing to go on.
So we do have the Unsolved Mystery gives us a little bit more information. 3 months after the attack, Jenny came out of her coma.
A miracle.
A miracle. The injuries to her brain caused her body to contort into a fetal ball, which is crazy. She seemed incapable of thought or action. However, again, another miracle, 12 weeks later, she started physical therapy. So she was transferred to a hospital in National City, and her stepdad and mother made the 100-mile round trip journey every single day to be near her. This poor family went into financial ruins.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah, to do this. They lost their jobs, their insurance, wanted nothing to do with them, everything. 7 months after the attack, she started to be able to speak again.
Yeah, just incredible.
A year later, she could walk. It's remarkable. In March 1988, nearly a year after the attack, Jenny finally came home.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. So she has obviously no memory of that. In fact, her short-term memory seems to be the most affected thing. In fact, I was reading in a different news article, they have to kind of remind her at this point early on that she had been in an accident, and every time she was re-upset by it.
Yeah.
And the doctors had hoped at best that she would regain about 85% of her mental capacity, it was going to say, they said up to the next decade to get her back to where she was.
Yeah. I mean, this is a long recovery road.
Yeah. And that ultimately, at the end of the day, her brain damage was extremely severe and is highly unlikely to ever be reversible again. It's irreversible brain damage.
Yeah, but they interview her.
They do. So they interview Jenny. She talks like a child. She endearing and very sweet looking. She looks like a child, and it breaks your heart.
Yeah, that's what I say. Like, it's a sad story, but there is a good part to this because she is alive.
Mm-hmm.
She recovers to the point where no one thought possible. And then you even get to see and hear from her. But yes, she is clearly extremely brain
And it was
damaged.
heartbreaking. Like the mom, and you could tell there's got to be some relentless guilt there. But she says, like, I'm so thankful my daughter's alive. And I'm like, that's a miracle. However,
yeah, I caught that.
They still have to mourn the loss of the daughter they had.
Well, she says, I miss the old Jenny.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, Unsolved Mysteries brings up a good point, and it's still a good point to this day. There was a handful of people in that truck. There is a group of
there are people that know
kids or adults who know what happened that day, and they're cowards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What do we got for our update?
So, updates. This is still unsolved to this day. Kind of. So, I found this in a few different areas, including a Facebook page that was about this case. And someone, now this is, take it for what it is. This is the internet, claims to be a family friend, and they posted something on behalf of the family.
Yeah.
And they cited a source for it.
Okay.
So on a reader board, another one of these like shady random websites, someone with the name Mike Fairbanks is the username. He's a member, and on August 14th, 2011, he posted this. Hey folks, this is my first post. Jenny Pratt is alive and lives in a group home. She visits her sister occasionally. She is mentally deficient, if that's the right term. I know and have heard nothing whether she has kids or not, but I seriously doubt it. Jenny Pratt isn't an unusual name, so there are lots of Jenny Pratts out there with kids. I don't think that Jenny Pratt has any kids. She can carry on a conversation, but still to this day very much thinks like a small child. She is physically healthy, but her brain damage was permanent. Number 2, I grew up in Ensenada and I have been at the intersection 1,000 times. Number 3, the case baffled all of us because the name of the guy who threw the board was passed around constantly. He is now dead from suicide. We heard over and over again that blank threw the board, but for some reason the guy kept very tight-lipped about it. It shocked me the most because I'm amazed that a group of guys who were such rats would actually stick together. This was a dumb group of poser thugs that called themselves the 502 crew. Just an obnoxious bunch who loved to fight, do drugs. They were out of control at that particular time, and San Diego was in a wash of cocaine. It was everywhere. There were people selling it. There was a lot of violence, but occasionally things like this happened. Oh, there wasn't a lot of violence. These guys were pretty much preppy as they were wanted to be gangsters and dressed like dorks. Okay? And number 4, the case is over as far as those who were involved are concerned. The only thing that can happen that would help ease the minds would be if the guys in the truck came forth and admitted it. Maybe that will happen in 2013 when the statute of limitation runs out.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I have a problem with these boards.
Yeah.
And this is why. I didn't even bring this up in this episode, in our episode about the magic rock.
Yeah.
But on Treasure Hunters, there was a treasure hunter website, and it had a little form, and actually someone had asked about that magic rock thing, right? Well, one of the comments in there, I actually took a screenshot because I was going to share it, but then when I looked into it, I realized, oh, this is BS. One of the comments is like, hey guys, listen, I was the other boy that found that magic rock, blah, blah, blah. But then when I looked into it, he actually used the wrong name. And like, me personally, I had looked into that story. I saw factual inconsistencies. I was like, oh, you're lying. Like, it was clear as day the guy was lying.
Yeah.
And so it bugs the crap out of me because people get on these boards.
I found this in a few different places.
And that's good.
But again, none of it was on a sourced page. So I'm just, like I said, that's my disclosure up front. Take this with what you will. It seems like at the end of the day, the family, and they even said, the family knows the truth. And they have stated that they refuse to give this guy's name any time or recognition. They want to just be left alone about this case.
They
consider it solved.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that is true,
it sounds like whoever this guy was. And here's the thing: if the family didn't want his name released, I did not do a bunch of deep digging. I'm sure you can find it out there. Well, here's the thing: I'm not going to
put a name out there if we don't. If there's no, and the police, like, at the end of the day, if that's how, I think whoever did it should be brought to justice. But whatever.
Yeah, and they even said they end it with, please note that the family loves hearing from Jenny's old friends, but not strangers. It's time to leave this family alone. It's over. Yeah, okay. And I'm sure the notoriety for being featured on Unsolved Mysteries, which obviously, when we haven't even talked about Curtis yet.
I was going to say, so I dug into Curtis, and
he's off the rails.
Well, so I dug into this guy. And I think the reason the family wants to be left alone is because this guy has put himself out in the spotlight to this day.
Mocking this girl. He acts like a mentally handicapped person on YouTube making fun of her.
Yes.
It's disgusting.
This guy has tried to become famous from what has happened. This guy is...
And this might be shocking to you. He's still continued to have many of cocaine issues and has been arrested multiple times.
He's scum.
He's scum of the earth.
So, but guess where or at least where he was living?
Where?
Up Grants Pass, Oregon. Yeah. Yeah, right next to Medford, which clearly, like, Grants Pass is right next to Medford. Yeah. And
we've talked about that
now multiple times.
Yeah, it's really, I didn't even, here's the thing. Every time you click on someone's YouTube page and give them more views, they're that much closer to like making money off of it. So I did not want to give him any credence.
So I guess,
but I saw a little thumbnail of it, and you had been like, I was shocked because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, very obviously someone was mocking a handicapped person and using vulgar language. And it's not something I'm used to my husband listening to. So I was like, babe, what are you watching?
I was watching a video of
and
him.
So he said and so I did not want to give any more weight to his page, but he's the same kind of guy. We hope he stubs his toe every day. We hope he always clips his fingernails too short.
Yeah,
I hope he always gets lemon juice in his paper cuts and everything else. He is scum.
So I guess like back in like, I don't know, 2010 or something like that, there's a website or there's something called Battle Cam.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea what it is, but I guess it's maybe before Facebook Live was big, but it's a way for them to go live, and what he does is just do stupid things, do pranks, whatever. The guy is he acts like a child. And he's like 50 years old. He looks like he's on
cocaine on all of these. He's amped up on something.
I was reading an article about him, how he'd gotten arrested for drug possession or whatever, and they had a video at the end, and it was like highlights of him from his battle cam thing. And literally, like, this is all I'm going to say. This tells you the scum this guy is. He's introduced, because, like, they're doing this big thing, and the guy introduces him as, oh, here's, Curtis. What's his name? Curtis.
I don't know.
Whatever. The guy that beat Jenny. Of course, he didn't do it by himself. He's like mocking that this guy's known for what has happened to this girl.
Yeah.
He's introduced as that. Like, the way he does it, it is clearly mocking this girl.
It seems to be like he has taken this on as a persona of pride and has tried to profit off of it.
It is the most disgusting thing I've seen. This guy is nothing but trash.
Yep.
And he's continuing, and that's the thing. He's putting his life out there still in the public, which is probably why the family wants to be left alone.
Probably.
And that's fair.
And now there's something that can be done. She was not murdered, so there is a statute of limitations on this crime.
Yeah. But all I got to say is, Curtis, you're a douche. And, Curtis Croft. And you don't deserve
No.
anything.
I hope all of the most annoying things in the world happen to you.
Yeah. So, anyway, sorry, that was my...
He is a pile of soggy mashed potatoes.
It'd be one thing if this happened to him and he really didn't know and he just like that. But then to go on to it with his life and use this as an opportunity to try to gain notoriety, that makes you the worst person.
Yeah, you are a pile of garbage. All right, we've given him enough of our attention. All right, so Benjamin has story number 2 for us.
This is not a sad story.
No.
I think after this, nothing too crazy. Yeah, I know. All right, we'll get into the third story. But this story is about Jack Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Quinn stole. Do you know how much money?
Yep.
Do you have?
Yep.
Okay, good, because I knew you would on this one. Jack Quinn, we get introduced to Jack Quinn that he's a wanted man because he stole over $1.3 million in 1988.
Adjusted for inflation, Ben.
I'm going to say, in 1988, it's got to be, I'm going to say $4 million.
3.5.
$3.5 million. That's a lot of money back then. All right. So Jack Quinn was the vice president of the Federal Protection Service. What they are, that's like a private company. They did armed security for banks and different things like that. And
they moved the money around.
And they moved money. I think they're still around, but I think they're pretty much like an armored truck business, pretty much.
Yeah. We've worked at retail stuff before. You'd have the armor truck people come in, swap out your tills or pick up your drops, or they service ATMs, those kinds of things. Yeah.
So a lot of money moving around for this company.
The big thing about these bills, they were not traceable.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to get into that.
Okay, because I don't know what the difference is, but...
Well, because they're not documenting every bill because money is coming in.
They're not a bank.
Well, money's coming in and going out. They're bringing it in. And I don't know how this all works either. I don't work for these places, but this was a security place. They moved money. They took money for businesses. But that's the big thing.
This was untraceable money.
Yeah, because it was all in different denominations, all that stuff. And because, like I said, that money was moving. It was coming in, and then it was going back out to businesses and stuff like that. Anyways, so on the morning of April 9th, 1988, at 8 a.m., Jack Quinn shows up to work, and he's just there to work his shift. He's doing some stuff. He says these things. He sees Harry Goldberg, who's another like supervisor there or something like that.
Isn't Goldberg like a famous last name in the financial world? The Goldberg Institute. Is that a thing? Am I just making up names again?
I don't know. I think
along with the Norman GPS system.
I think you're maybe thinking of like a gold business because it's Goldberg, I don't know.
Sorry, continue.
I just know Goldberg, it was a famous name for a wrestler, I think, back in the day.
Oh,
don't quote me on that, but yeah, I think so. Anyways, back to our story. So Jack sees Harry and he's like, hey, I'm doing my shift, whatever. So Jack's in the vault area, which I guess is not uncommon. Even Harry sees him like all day. Well, Jack spends all day, supposedly. I don't know. They try to explain it, but they do a terrible job.
Mm-hmm.
But he's moving money out of the vault and out of like plastic bags or something.
He's bagging it up into the cloth bags that they have.
And putting it in
boxes.
Mm-hmm. Cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this was not a red flag to anybody.
Well, I don't know. They don't really say that he saw him doing it in boxes, but like that's because Harry says he walks by multiple times and he just sees like Jack at his desk
in his
just
office,
working, and he's like calm. He says Jack's calm and collective. Like he's like nothing is askew.
Yeah,
according to him. So, but Jack boxes up all this money, $1.3 million bucks.
Mm-hmm.
And he puts it in boxes and puts it in his company car.
Yep.
In the trunk of his company car. But then he takes $107,000 and puts it in his personal car.
Adjusted for inflation?
I'm going to say around $300,000.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So takes $107,000, puts it in the trunk of his personal car. Then he drives his personal car home. And Harry follows him home.
Yeah, he asks his coworker, "Hey, can you
follow me home?
Follow me to the house and then drive me back."
And so he drops off his personal car, says to his wife, "Hey,
poor wife,
I got to go back. I got some
wrap up some more stuff at work.
I'll be home. I'll be off in like 30 minutes or whatever. At least in the reenactment, that's what he says." So Harry takes him back. He does a few more things at the office, and then he leaves in his company car. Drives his company car to the Palm Beach International Airport, and he disappears.
Poof.
Never to be seen again.
Yep.
Up until this episode. They think, so now we're interviewing the detective. Mm-hmm. He's got a ticket stub that he entered the parking lot at 5:36 p.m. They think he transferred the money into suitcases and disappeared. They can't find any records that he got on a plane, rented a car, or took a taxi. They have no idea how he left the airport. But he leaves that airport with $1.3 million. Okay?
Okay.
So then the wife starts getting worried.
Poor wife.
She's calling. Can't figure out where he is. She calls the office and they're like, "We have no idea.
Yeah,
he left a long time
ago. Yeah.
So she goes out and she goes out the next day, looks in the trunk of her car, and guess what she finds?
A wad of cash.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
What does she do? She calls the police.
Yeah,
because here's the thing. He was giving his wife that money. Like, hey, listen.
I feel
I'm bailing on you. Here's some money.
For my good consciousness, I need to leave you with some cush. Yeah.
Like, here's enough money. So then we start getting some theories.
Yeah, now we start getting a little bit of background. You get to hear some of the red flags that were leading up to this.
All of a sudden, we find out Jack, he's got an eye for the high life. I guess he's renting a 10-acre horse farm, horse ranch, right? On a $35,000 salary.
Yeah, so he claimed to people he only made $35,000.
But that's a lot of money back then.
Adjusted for inflation.
That's like over $100,000.
No, it's not. $93,000.
Okay, but still $93,000.
That's not enough to rent a horse farm.
I don't know. Maybe it was at that time. Maybe it wasn't super expensive back then.
No, because that wasn't his only
Anyways, what we're finding out is
he's overstretched himself.
He's overstretched right. Oh yeah, and I'm sorry. The wife, when she goes and finds this money in the trunk of the car, there's a letter. There's a note in it, and it pretty much just says, they summarize it. We don't know exactly everything it says. It says, "I have done something very wrong, and I can't stay and face the consequences." That's what.
Coward.
Yeah, but whatever that means. So I'm just going to take money and run.
Yeah.
Did you notice, though? So then they interview the president of Federal Protection Services, and Carl Felgenzi. I wrote it Felgenzi.
I love that you spell this to me like out of the two people in this room. I'm going to be the one to figure out how to pronounce it.
Felgenzi. Well, here's the best part. Felgenzi, Carl, president of the company that this guy works for, says to us, we found out like a month prior to him stealing all this money that the IRS is after Jack. And that they're like coming for him for some significant amount of money. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, that's not a red flag to you, buddy?
This employee of yours works in finance department and has access to untraceable money in a vault door that's open all the time. And it sounds like at least that day there's 2 employees working in the place.
Well, that's the thing. This guy has access to your vault.
We put him on temporary sort of leave.
Or just not give him access to the vault.
Yeah.
Because I actually read, like, supposedly, I don't know, they say, like, they didn't find out the money was gone until a couple of days later because it was like he closes the vault and it was like on a timed lock, whatever. I don't know if that's true, but, like, what I'm saying is
this is wild to me because here's the thing. This was, in the grand scheme of things, not that long ago. For financial institutions to be that lackadaisy is wild to me.
This guy has access to your vault, which has millions of dollars.
$3.5 million. Then there are times when we've had to go to the bank. Like we were trying to pay cash for a beater used car, and the bank sometimes doesn't have several $1,000s in cash. Like, and that's a major financial institution.
And you guys find out this guy's in massive trouble with the IRS, and you say, "Hey, let's still give him access to the vault." I don't know. Call me Chris. Anyway, sorry. Got off on that tangent. But anyways.
Yeah, I was reading that it's not just paying back money. He was facing jail time with the IRS.
I'm sure
that's no joke.
Anyways.
Are you also going to talk about the other things his poor wife finds out?
Yeah, so supposedly they thought he was having an affair. I guess he was leaving for work at 5 a.m. but not showing up to the office till 9:30. But they don't really have... They don't know who the mistress was. They think maybe she ran off. He ran off with this woman, but we have no idea. These are just theories they're throwing out. And the best part is the president says, like, maybe he stole the money to, like, because the IRS was after him. Like, yeah, but he's not going to resolve those debts with the IRS on the run. Like,
with stolen cash.
Yeah, so anyways, that's where Unsolved Mysteries said, like, hey, this guy's wanted. They give us a description, and this was my favorite part, is they start telling us, like, what he looks like. He's got thinning brown hair. He's 48 years old. But they say, and I quote, stocky with a tendency to put on weight.
Dude, the 80s were savage when it came to, like, descriptions.
Stocky with the tendency to... So pretty much what you're saying is, like, hey, the guy's fat. He's a big boy.
He's a big boy and doesn't have any problem gaining weight. Yeah.
Clearly he's big already, and he might get bigger because now he's got money to spend on steak dinners.
Yeah.
Anyways, so are you ready for your update?
Yeah, what's our update?
Guy was never found.
He is
still never found. And
this is wild to me that in this day and age.
I know. He was never found. So I did find.
So they got close to catching him. Yeah.
Yes. In 1992, they tracked him to Houston, Texas. I guess he used his brother-in-law's name to, like, get a driver's license. They went to go pick him up, and he vanished.
Gone.
And that's the last they've ever come close to catching this guy.
1992.
Then the best part is they tell us at the end, like, they give us the update. They believe him to be living in one of 2 places, Hawaii or Maryland.
Whoa.
Could you get any further?
Could be either or.
He could be way out here or on the complete other side of the country.
Yeah.
One of the 2 places.
Yeah, but you know what? Also, the last time
between.
they had someone missing, they said that he was likely in Arizona
or Mexico.
No,
he said he was likely in Mexico.
Yeah.
They thought he was in El Paso, and he was in Canada.
Yeah.
No, I know. I just thought it was funny. It's like, hey, we think he's in Hawaii or Maryland. And it's like, and are you going to tell us he could be anywhere in between? Because I'm pretty much certain that covers the entire United States. So he's either way out on the Pacific coast.
What are the chances that he's even still alive? I mean, he'd have to be in his...
Well, he at 48 in 1988. Let's see, but that's... We're at 36 years since then, so he'd be 84. Yeah.
And
am I doing my math right?
Again, I love that you're asking me that. I don't math.
I think somewhere he'd be in his 80s. Okay, let's not. I'm trying to do this on the fly, but yeah, I think 80. I think 84 is the right number.
I'll tell you what, if you're wrong, there's several people hollering at you through their speakers or their earbuds in whatever form they're listening to you right now.
Anyways.
Yeah, in this day and age, even the last 20 years, to be on the run successfully is almost unheard of. It's actually quite amazing that there's not more stories about this man.
Yeah, I was fathomed. I thought for sure.
Well, and it was even really hard to do research on this because Jack Quinn, I learned today, is also a hockey player who possibly needs surgery for something. And there's a lot of talk on him getting surgery and how that's going to affect the season and what the recovery is going to look like.
Who does he play for?
Who does he play for?
Yeah.
The hockey people.
Here's the thing. I don't know either. I'm not a hockey guy.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't know.
I just was curious.
Like, these articles don't seem to be matching exactly what I'm looking for because I was looking for Jack Quinn, like updates, and I'm getting all these updates on this dear hockey boy who must have gotten injured or done something. He needs surgery. So hopefully that Jack Quinn's doing great with his career and his surgery. He's on the mend.
All right, but not the Jack Quinn you were looking for.
No, but it made the research of this quite annoying because that's obviously getting way more attention.
No, I mean, here's the thing. I looked into it. There is nothing out there. He has not been found. He got away with his 1.3 million untraceable dollars and lived it up. I'm gonna guess with the way this guy lived, I bet by 92 he was out of that money.
Yeah.
But whatever. But what did this make you think of? What did this make you think of? This story? What movie?
I don't.
Are you kidding me? Come on. Because federal protection, it's pretty much.
Oh, yes. Okay, you're right. I actually originally, when I very first saw the start of this, I thought it was going to be that story. Was the story of the guy. What is his name? The comic actor that is hilarious.
Zach Galifianakis. So there's that movie Masterminds.
Yes,
and he
robs
the company he's working for, which is
When this, Sarah, you're right. I was thinking more the ending of this, but yes, the beginning of that. I thought that this was going to be the story behind the Masterminds movie.
That movie is hilarious.
It is hilarious.
If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's hilarious, and it's based on a true story of this guy
and the guy that served time for that crime is out and was actually a part of like putting the movie together. So yeah.
But I mean, obviously, it's exaggerated.
Yeah.
To be funny, but it's funny. Anyways, that's what it made me think of when they were first telling it. I laughed a little bit. But anyways, all right.
All right, babe.
All right.
We have another wild story. And I've got some thoughts on this one, as I'm sure you do too. So this is the story about Clarence and Geneva Roberts.
Love that name.
I know.
Clarence.
Well, wasn't that your grandfather's name?
It was my grandpa's name, and I do love it.
So, Nashville, Indiana, I'll be honest, did not even know that there was a town in Indiana called Nashville. Did you?
No, I did not. And I lived in Indiana for a couple years. But I looked it up on a map, and I never went to that town or drove through it. I did live in Columbus, Indiana for a little while, which it's like, It's west of there. It's
Okay.
between Columbus and Bloomington, which
Okay.
is where Indiana University is at.
So at
But
the
it's a
time,
tiny little town.
yeah, at the time the population was 700,
Yeah, do you know how big it is now?
about 1,200.
1,200.
So they've really gone through a growth spurt there.
Yeah.
So it's been described as the Norman Rockwell painting brought to life. I actually think I've heard that before about many a small towns in Midwest America. But so once again, here we are, a small town. You're going to get the cliche things. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, but that is true.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Indiana. It is a beautiful state, and it's got some really cool little towns.
Yeah, there's only a few streets and fewer secrets, as they tell us on Unsolved Mysteries. And it's a community in the best sense of the word. Two of the most illustrious citizens were 52-year-old Clarence and his wife Geneva. But in the fall of 1970, the couple would become embroiled in a firestorm of controversy, betrayal, and murder. Buckle up. So on the night of November 18th, 1970, a fire broke out in the Roberts' fashionable home. When the ashes had cooled, there was a body discovered, and it was identified as Clarence. 10 years later, on November 29th, 1980, another fire started. Two bodies were discovered. One of Geneva, and the other was once again...
Wait, no.
Yes, hold on. Identified as Clarence. But here's the question. How can a man die twice? The people of Nashville are still wondering to this day how this happened. Okay, would you like to tell me where I went wrong on there?
No, the dates.
The dates?
Because in the episode, they give us two different dates for that second fire.
Oh, do they?
Well, they don't, but the headstone does.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I have November 29th, 1980. What do you have as far as...
So I wrote it down. The first one is November 18th, 1970.
Uh-huh.
The second one, Robert Stack says the second one broke out on November 18th, 1980. Literally 10 years.
Changed to the day.
To the day. But then they show a picture of Clarence's headstone, and it says November 29th,
Yeah,
1980.
that's where I pulled it from.
So I didn't know which one was which. I was a little confused. Sorry. Okay. I'm a big stiffler on like dates stuff and like
Well,
that.
that's good because I'm not. So again,
But I did find it interesting that originally they're telling us it's literally 10 years to the day. I don't know if it really is, but anyways, go forth.
All right. So we get an interview of Detective Sergeant Don Custer. Kuster.
Custard?
Custer. Kuster.
All right.
Custer. Of the Indiana State Police. He talked to both detectives that investigated the second fire. And based on what they told him, he believes that Clarence died in the second fire. Then we get talking head number 2. Clarence's nephew, Bob White, believes that Clarence died in the first fire. However, Clarence's sister-in-law, who has an RBF, if I have ever seen one, and definitely has a major opinion on this man.
An R what?
RBF. But this is a
What's an
clean,
RBF?
This is a clean family podcast, so I can't tell you what it's called. An RBF, arresting.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Okay.
But I had a problem with...
She had an attitude about it. But anyways, she believes that he's still alive. So that's kind of at the very top of this. We find out this man's been declared dead twice, both on fires, right around 10 years apart from each other, almost to the day. And we have 3 very different opinions.
Yeah.
And again, in a town of 700 people.
800.
800 people. Oh.
Well, now 790.
Nope, population
98.
that day was 700.
Huh?
Fact check me, Benjamin. All right. So the mysteries of Clarence's death still haunt this little town.
I bet it haunts them.
It does.
I bet it haunts them to death.
So we're going to get a little background on this. Haunts him to death. I just got that. Good job. In the 1960s, Clarence was the epitome of the American dream. He was a former sheriff. He was a board member of the Nashville...
I just want to know, when was he a sheriff?
I don't know.
They never tell us.
Yeah. Board member of the Nashville State Bank. He seemed to have it all. In the 1960s, Clarence opened a he opened a hardware store.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was writing there.
I don't know what you were writing either.
Along with his brother, Carson. Maybe this is why his sister-in-law has such a chip on her shoulder.
Yeah, but he's got multiple brothers.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, because his brother, that later on.
Oh, yeah.
Because I wrote his other brother.
We get a lot of talking heads in this story.
Dude, there is a lot of people in the story. Because Warren Roberts is his brother also, who is a sheriff.
Yeah.
He comes into the story.
He comes in,
So he has multiple brothers, and I was curious on his sister-in-law, Mrs. Roberts. She's interviewed a lot in this, and she's got a lot of opinions, and I'm like, which brother are you married to? I'm kind of curious, but we never find out.
Her attitude, I would not be surprised if she was the one married to the one he co-owned the store with.
Yeah, but they interviewed his brother that he owned the hardware store with. And he literally does nothing but talk nice about his brother Clarence. He's like, he was a good man. He was a hard worker.
Again,
he said he worked
another
with him
reason
for
why
22
this
years.
sister-in-law might have an opinion. I don't know. Anyways, so he was well respected. He seemed like he was the kind of guy at the hardware store that was friends with everybody. Him and his brother worked together for over 20 years. He said his brother said that he always was happy. He enjoyed his work. He was friendly. He got along. He was a hard worker who put in a ton of hours at the store, and was also known to be very helpful and was really good about like helping anyone in the community that needed anything. Okay, I mean sounds like your typical small town guy. Exactly.
Well, and it looked like, I think he was a World War II vet.
Yeah, I saw that on his headstone.
Yeah, and the picture they show of him and his wife, because they were married in 1941, he's in uniform. So it looks like he served in World War II.
Yeah, so they got married in 1941. She had come from a poor family. However, again, they're the classic American story. They rose up in the Nashville society. They had 4 sons, a successful family business, and seemed overall to be the perfect couple. He soon reached the 33rd degree of the Masons, a rank marked by a ring, which he wore proudly.
They put a ring on it.
I don't know anything about the Masons. Do you?
No. I think this came up a little bit earlier in one of our episodes. Because that guy that had that picture that looked like he belonged to the Masons.
He had one of those funny hats on.
Yeah. I don't know anything about the Masons.
My mom sent me a message the other day, and I need to follow up on and ask. She said, I think that my grandfather was really high up in the Masons.
It's top secret. We can't talk about it.
Apparently, I think it's men only. I don't think women can be Masons. And the only thing I know about the Freemasons is their involvement with Nicolas Cage in finding treasures.
Well, I do know they did hide a treasure map on the back of the Declaration of Independence and below, churches and stuff.
Yeah. That's all I got.
It hasn't been found yet. I mean, well, it kind of has, but maybe, I don't know.
I don't know.
We just don't know. But they were involved in finding the U.S. and it goes all the way back to the Knights Templar. Trust me, I watched a whole documentary on it. It's called National Treasure. It's really good. You guys should watch it. There's even a sequel.
So, however, once again, here we go. His appetite for the good life began to consume him.
Dude,
he purchased 3 luxury cars and an expensive luxury home.
I did like that they're trying to dog that he bought a house.
It sounds like, I think in this town of 700 people, I guarantee probably 90% of the houses are all relatively about the same. And then you probably have a handful, and he maybe had one of the houses.
Store owner.
Yeah. However, Shockingly enough, behind the facade of wealth was heavy, heavy debts.
This is where his sister-in-law gets in.
I think this is where the bitterness comes in.
So I wrote down her quote. So they interview her.
Oh,
right
she
here.
had some golden ones. Please share with us.
So
Ben.
they're talking about his lust for the good life.
Yeah.
Well, she comes in. Mrs. Roberts, his sister-in-law. She says, this is her quote, "Clarence changed a lot. He really did. I really can't describe how different he would be in she pauses here. She's like, I really can't describe how different he would be. It's like turning on a light and turning a light off." That's what she says.
I know.
And then she says, this is the best part, and she says this in dramatic tone. "That was Clarence who turned the light off."
Yeah.
That's what she says.
She was not one of the people that maybe believes we don't speak ill of the dead.
I guess
But she also at the beginning says she thinks that he's alive.
Here's the thing. I thought this was interesting. We're going to get off on a little bit of a tangent here.
Okay.
Okay. Because this lady she's interviewed a lot about Clarence and his character and who he was. His brother, they only talked to him once about him owning the hardware store with him. Then they never talked to him again. Mm-hmm. Then they talked to his nephew. But she's brought in multiple times to talk about him. And here's my thing. If something were to happen to me or whatever, and you're going to go and try to find someone to talk about my life and my character.
Exactly who I'm going to have talk about you and your character.
Well, you're going to have someone on a television to talk about my life and my character. And this is, and I really enjoy my sister-in-laws. Okay. But I just don't think that they're the most qualified to talk about me and my life.
They might be able
character.
to come in and give a few, but here's the thing.
I guess my sister-in-laws are just not the ones that I would, and that's on both sides of my family. Like I've got siblings, I got brothers that are married.
Yeah.
And then I have your sisters. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. They might have a few token nice things to say about you, but they wouldn't be the experts being interviewed.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're not the
No,
expert.
she reminded me, if someone was doing your story, she reminds me of someone that I... Never mind. We won't get into that anthill. Okay, so to finance his lifestyle, Clarence had actually sold the hardware business. We had never find out if this is something his brother agreed to or not. We get no background information on that. And then at that point, gambled everything away on 2 investment properties, an apartment building, and several grain elevators. Which, I'll be honest, I work in real estate. Do you know how hard it is to invest in real estate and to lose money? You got to be really bad at what you do. So especially in Indiana, rental property and grain silos.
Apartments?
Yeah, it wasn't just a house. He bought an apartment complex.
That's what they said.
How do you fail at that?
I don't know.
So anyways, these investment fails, he submitted and altered bills to insurance companies regarding the apartment complex. So he was committing insurance fraud. By 1970, he could tell he was in serious trouble.
Much belly up.
In October, 1 month before the fire, Sheriff Warren Roberts,
his brother,
Clarence's own brother, had to come into his property and repossess two of his vehicles. That is a small town.
That's got to be so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Your own brother coming in like, hey, bro.
Yeah, and I got to do this because I'm the sheriff, man. Yeah. So obviously, Clarence and Geneva, they at this point are left desperate. And you're in a small town. Everybody talks. So to see, and who does not love to see the mighty fall? You know what I mean? So I guarantee there were people in that community that were just like, they had a popcorn and a front row seat to this whole thing. So Bob tells us that Clarence had become depressed and possibly suicidal at this time.
Bob's his nephew.
Yes. So, the night of the first fire, 6:20 p.m. on November 18th, 1970, the firemen arrived to find that the garage barn of the Roberts home was like fully engulfed. Big time fire.
Inflamed.
The heat was so intense that they actually just stood by and let it burn to the ground. When the fire had cooled, they made the discovery that a body burned beyond recognition lay beneath the rubble. A half-melted shotgun was by its side. So the body was so bad that it was even hard to identify it as human. Enter Jack Bond, the county coordinator. Coroner, not coordinator.
Not a coordinator.
I mean, who knows? It's such a small town. He probably was.
He probably wore many hats.
Yeah, exactly.
I like Jack Bond. He seemed like a good dude.
He seemed like a good old boy, for sure. So Jack Bond feared that Clarence had finally paid his debts by taking his own life.
I do love that he said that.
Says that. When the body was found, the assumption was that he had shot himself. He went on to tell us that he just had so many worries in his life that he decided to just end it all. When they arrived at the funeral home and started looking for gunshot wounds, the Jack Bond was surprised to not find any.
Couldn't find anything.
Mm-hmm. So the police began to wonder how Clarence's suicide could have been accomplished without a gunshot wound. Yeah, there's a lot of other ways to do it, but yeah, I was surprised that they were so stuck on that. I mean, I guess there was a shotgun there.
Yeah, but what they're saying is there was no other signs that he committed suicide.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing that they thought.
Well, what usually kills you in a fire?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you committed suicide. You could have been, something would have happened, you got stuck in the fire. What they're trying to say is they think this was all intentional.
Yeah.
But if they can't find a gunshot wound, then...
Yeah, so an autopsy later determines
more...
that the cause of death is carbon monoxide poisoning, right? Which occurred prior to the fire. So carbon monoxide poisoning isn't from the fire. It's usually from the it's from turning a car on in a garage and not... That's like...
Oh, now we're getting into...
Yeah, that's carbon monoxide poisoning. I don't think that the smoke inhalation is different.
Carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide?
Carbon monoxide poisoning.
I don't know. You're asking me questions that are outside of my wheelhouse.
Yeah. I only know that because I have this weird irrational fear that I will turn on my car in my garage and the garage will fail to open, and that in a matter of seconds I'm going to be asleep in the front seat.
Then you just turn your car off.
I understand, Ben. I'm just letting you know it is a...
And now, cars actually don't emit fumes to the point where it would take so long.
Oh, Ben, that's why it's called an irrational
Especially our van.
Fear.
Yeah.
So I will never turn the car on until the garage door is open, which I think is just common sense anyways. But, okay. So they start sifting through the debris. Hidden in the ashes, they find Clarence's ring. The
ring that the Masons put
they put a ring on it.
They put a ring on his finger.
Despite the intense heat, the ring was virtually undamaged and was in excellent shape and did not appear to have any sort of melting or warping or anything on it. Okay. So the theory is they just did not think that the ring could have withstood that prolonged amount of heat without having at least any damage, and that was one of the first signs that maybe that this was a planted scene. Investigators learned
They think the ring was planted there.
Well, and now you've got the carbon monoxide poisoning. So there's a couple of things that are this is not looking like your traditional accidental house fire or even suicide. Investigators learned only months before, shocking, that Clarence had purchased several life insurance policies totaling close to $1 million. Adjusted for inflation, Ben.
In 1970?
Mm-hmm.
$1 million?
Yeah.
Oh, that's got to be over $5 million.
$8 million.
Oof.
I know, chunk of change. And named his wife as a beneficiary. He had also bragged to friends that he had more than $100,000, adjusted for inflation is $8,000, in Swiss bank account, and showed off the card for the account. Here's the kicker, though. And I don't know why this just did not end the conversation. A blood test showed that the body found in the first fire was type AB. Clarence, based on the records from the Army, was type B. Period. Why that did not end this debate is, I was watching this episode, I was like, okay, there's no more investigation that needs to be done. Blood type is blood type.
I'm just saying, watching this segment, there is a whole lot of assumptions without any facts.
Exactly.
And then when even facts come in, there's still assumptions.
And with no way, shape, or form where these came from. Because we're going to have another pretty bold assumption here in a little while.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, keep going.
So, okay. 2 days before the fire, Clarence was spotted at a bar in the nearby community of Morgantown, or also known as Brown County, being really friendly with a vagrant. The man was described as about the same height and same age as Clarence.
Is he described that way, or is that what you guys want to find?
Again, yeah.
I guess I'm just like, okay. Anyways, keep going.
The two were together, but Clarence apparently did not know this man's name. He told the man that he had some odd jobs around the house that needed to be done. The man agreed to go with them. However, as they were leaving,
who was around for all this conversation that knows all this?
The man collapsed from some unknown cause, and Clarence said, "Hey, get in my car. I'll take you to the hospital."
Who's the witness that saw all of this?
Heard none of this information.
Witnessed all of this.
We get none of it. Nothing.
So you're telling me some waiter heard all that conversation, saw them go out, saw this, saw Clarence, had Clarence tell him, "Oh, I'll take him to the hospital. Yep. Don't worry." Like, I just want to know where they got all of this information.
We get none of that.
Anyways, keep going.
So, the detective actually calls all of the hospitals within a 300-mile radius just to confirm that no vagrant was dropped off there.
Never happened.
Nope, never happened. So, now we get a town divided. Nashville has got two teams. One, that Clarence killed himself. And then the other is that he murdered some traveling homeless man to collect insurance money. And there was even a rumor floating around that he watched from the woods of his house as his fire burned down.
Who made that assumption? And where did you get that?
I don't know. So Bob comes out and says that he believes that Clarence was suicidal. However, he doesn't believe that he was homicidal. His sister-in-law, on the other hand, believes that he was definitely capable of murder.
Oh, she thinks this guy's just a murderer, just slaying people and leaving them in a barn to burn. Like,
yeah.
She hates this guy.
Yeah, she
clearly.
She is not a fan.
Hates this guy.
At this point, we know one of two things. Either Clarence is dead or he's missing. Thank you, Unsolved Mysteries, for that update.
He's either the guy in the fire or he isn't.
Or he isn't. Could be either or.
Could be either or.
So Geneva at this point is a widowed, has no money. They call it a riches to rags story.
Yeah. She's back to where she started.
Yeah.
They pretty much just say
Unsolved Mystery is savage tonight.
They are savage to this lady. They literally just like, she's back where she started when she was born.
She's forced to move out onto an old home on the Roberts family property on the outskirts of town.
I looked at this town.
She tried for months to get the insurance company to give her the payout, but it was repeatedly denied.
It wasn't months. It was years.
Oh, I'm going to get into that. She also tried to have Clarence declared dead. However, a judge denied that request, citing insufficient evidence. Okay? Enter Dr. John.
Oh, yeah. John
Pless. Pless. Dr. John Pless.
I got thoughts about John
Oh,
Pless.
I got thoughts too. So he's a prominent pathologist, and he agreed with not with Clarence. He agreed with Geneva. Yeah. And in 1978, attorneys came to him to review the reports of the experts who had examined the witness. Through this process, he proved to himself, and this is according to him.
So he examined all the evidence of the death of Clarence.
And he said through this process, he not only proved to himself, but to several others, that the body found in the garage did belong to Clarence.
Uh-huh.
Not an ounce of evidence given as to why that's the case.
That's the best part. They never tell us
how you could explain the difference in the blood types. That is I'm not a doctor. I have zero medical education. 2 different blood types is the end of the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume that, I mean, obviously now, like, blood types, we do DNA, right? Like, that's everything.
But Dr. Pless goes on to testify at a civil trial against the insurance companies and followed her all the way through.
Yeah, he's trying to help
Geneva
her get
lost
this insurance
every
money.
Single appeal.
Yeah. She loses
everything.
Yeah, she doesn't, nothing.
Mm-hmm. So all of these appeals and denials take their toll on Geneva. She withdraws from society, from her friends, and becomes the subject of local gossip. Gossip. I was excited because at this point I thought it was going to be like she was going to turn into like the witch lady or something, because if I'm ever destitute in the fringes of society or I live alone as an old woman, I want to be the person who the kids get dared to come knock on my door.
Okay.
So I was excited that she was going to turn into the local witch lady. However, unfortunately, that's not the case.
So you're just, in your mind, like, in your, like, what?
I'm going to live in an old, ratty
house with cats.
Farmhouse with cats.
Listening to true crime.
There's going to be crows involved somehow.
Yeah, and
I'm going to have a garden and herbs and all kinds of stuff, and and I'm going to have crazy gray wild hair, and I will be the person who will, on Halloween, the local kids dare them to knock on my door because I'm the town witch.
Okay.
So, there you go.
See, that's 100% not true, because Sierra can't go longer than like 2 days without having like friendly, lots of people communication. So you couldn't live like that, because you wouldn't do it. You have to be involved with everyone all the time.
I do like people. You raise a point that I honestly had never considered.
Yeah, you say this because you like, I mean, Sierra loves like Halloween stuff and all that. But then she also she'll make friends with strangers.
Okay, well then I'll just be friends with all of the other crazy old ladies.
The kids would come knocking and she'd have cookies and all kinds of stuff ready to go already. And she'd be like, "Oh, this is so great." And she'd be wanting more people.
That's you're probably
2 days in a house by yourself. You'd go crazy and you'd go into town and you would just stay in town all day.
They'd be like, "We cannot get rid of this lady."
Yeah. So no.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Geneva doesn't take that route.
Shocking. Okay.
She gets a job at a kitchen of a local Howard Johnson's restaurant. They make this seem like this is like below her to get a job working at a restaurant, but
yeah, I was like, okay, so she's working for a living.
Yeah,
like she's trying to make ends meet.
Even more rumors pop up. A local shopkeeper, love a small town. Keep your opinions to yourself, Linda.
I love
she
small
starts
town gossip.
Telling everybody that she is selling Geneva large quantities of beer. And that's kind of surprising because, as we all know, she's a diabetic.
So her medical history's out there, I guess. Well, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah. So this sparks the question if she lives alone or not. Because if she's a diabetic, could she really be drinking that much beer?
Who's she taking this beer to?
Who's she taking it to?
She's not drinking it.
This gets to the point where even the detectives decide.
Well, so there's now rumors that they see this man hanging around her property. And again, who?
Yeah, we get
who's saying this?
I don't know. So it gets
where's
to the point
the
that
witness? I want the
Detective
witness.
Anderson and several officers set up a 3-day, 24-hour surveillance. Man, I'm struggling tonight. Surveillance on her home, and they find nothing.
But this is the thing that blows my mind. This detective comes on and says, "We've got all these reports that people are seeing this dude hang around, and like no one can get close to him. Anytime they get close to him, he goes in the house, supposedly her house. He's hanging around in the woods. They hear her talking to someone there, right?
Yeah.
We don't know who these witnesses are.
No.
So he literally then says he does this.
Yeah, they
72-hour
take
surveillance.
photographs. They do all of the surveillance. They never see anybody. However, despite this, they still believe that
That's what's crazy.
That Clarence is coming in and out of the house.
Are you freaking kidding me?
I know.
So you set up a 72-hour surveillance. You don't see a thing, and you walk out and you say, "Yeah, I still believe it. What I saw with my own eyes, I don't believe.
Yep.
I'm going to believe the rumors, even though I literally sat there and watched this thing for 3 days. So I'm not going to listen to facts? Okay.
Yeah.
All
no.
right. Go ahead.
So
no. Why listen? Why listen to facts?
So we're back to, we're fast forward, we're November 29th, 1980. We're 10 years later, right?
Or November 18th. I don't know.
The house catches on fire. Her house catches on fire.
Geneva's house.
The detective Anderson said he arrives at the house soon after the fire starts, and the fire was still burning intensely at the time. However, he hangs around. Just watches it. After the fire is even extinguished, he stays behind, curious as to what would be found. The house had been totally demolished. Sifting through the ashes, searchers found Geneva's body. Remove it, goes to the funeral home. Hours later, they make another shocking discovery. A second body is found in another part of the house. Enter in, once again, Dr. Pless.
John Pless.
He says this one line.
Oh, this line.
Now, mind you, this guy spent the last several years with Geneva fighting this battle for her.
I know.
That was guaranteed Clarence
in the first fire.
In the first one. He pops in and says that he immediately recognized the body as belonging to Clarence because he had his x-rays memorized.
Yeah, he says, I didn't even need what the cross, like, to put
No,
the
he
two,
says he didn't even need the x-rays because he had them memorized.
He studied Clarence's x-rays so much that the minute he saw him, he recognizes Clarence. And I'm like, listen, dude, your credibility is
shot
out the window.
Yeah.
You literally just tried to tell us and everyone else and a court of law that the guy in the first fire was Clarence. Now you're saying, no, this one's Clarence.
So he positively identifies the body based just solely on looking at it without any other.
Oh, dude, I know this guy.
And then says that it was a little bit of a difficult task telling everyone that Clarence was dead for the second time. And he laughs about it.
But he's like, he doesn't even bring up that, hey, I know that I might not be taken seriously about this. Like he's talking no big deal.
Or
I'm 100%
hey,
true.
I was wrong, so I need to double and triple check that this is now who I think it is.
He says he believes this Clarence beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Which I think is what he said the first time.
And I'm like, buddy, nobody believes you. Yeah,
so we find out that the second fire was a clear-cut case of arson. They could follow a burn pattern from outside to Geneva's bed into the adjacent room where the other body was located to out the back door of the house. Based on evidence, unfortunately, Geneva had been murdered. They don't, again, tell us anything else other than that. We don't know her cause of death, just that she had been murdered. And that they believe turpentine was used to ignite the fire.
But they say there's, clear
It was arson.
A
and
line
there was
from her bedroom
there was an
to
accelerant.
the next bedroom to out the back door.
Yeah. So, in Green Lawn Cemetery, the mystery of Clarence Robert lies buried, still defying explanation after decades. Who was the man in the first fire? Who set the second fire and why? Who was the mysterious figure seen at Geneva's house? Why did she hide his identity? And the key question, where is Clarence today? That's how the episode ends.
Yeah, but, okay. No one seems concerned that someone literally just killed this lady and this other person that's in there. Because they start saying, like, they think it was Clarence that did it. I'm like, wait, I'm sorry, time out. Someone laid an accelerant on her, they say inner room, like inner room, on her.
Yeah.
And to the next room where the second body was found. And then they say there's a clear line to the back door. And you're trying to tell me it was the dude in the second room? So he lays an accelerant.
So we'll get into this. The update. This is still unresolved to this day. Okay? Authorities say that they are certain that the second body in the fire number 2 is that of Clarence. They ended up getting dental records.
Okay.
Okay? In regards to the 1980 fire, a grand jury...
No, sorry. Go back. You're saying it 100% was him in the first fire?
No, second fire.
Okay.
The second body found in the second fire belonged to Clarence.
Okay.
Via dental records.
Okay.
Period. In regards to the 1980 fire, a grand jury determined that Geneva was either murdered or passed out from alcohol consumption due to a diabetic coma.
Yeah, I read that.
And that Clarence likely died accidentally while setting the fire.
That doesn't make sense.
They believed that he was heavily intoxicated and might have passed out or combined with the fire's fumes. His blood alcohol level was 0.2. I don't know what that means.
0.2 is not, you're drunk.
Mm-hmm. And hers was 0.3.
0.3. Yeah, I read that. Okay, but this is what I'm saying. That doesn't make sense.
No, so yes. So at the end of the day, there is a couple of theories. One is the one we just talked about, that his wife passed out and maybe was dying or dead or something from alcohol consumption, and he started to set this fire. It was also intoxicated and passed out due to the fumes or whatever. Maybe he'd walked outside and inside. I'm just telling you the theories.
No, that's what I'm saying. Their theory is that he did this, ran the accelerant to the back door, lit the fire, then walked back into the house, went into the second bedroom and died within the fire.
The second theory is that this was a murder-suicide.
Mm-hmm. Again, still doesn't make sense.
And then the third theory is that there was a third person involved who murdered them and set the house on fire.
I don't know what happened, but all I am saying is a lot of assumptions with zero facts. Zero facts.
At the end of the day, regardless, I don't even think, to me, like, that you can get hung up on. And yes, it's an intriguing question. It's a fascinating story of how a guy got declared dead twice. It is likely that he was a murderer. Yeah, it's likely that he was a murderer. That first body didn't just accidentally end up with his ring in the garage. And to this day, we do not know who that man is.
Yeah.
That is the sad tragedy in this story. And I feel like with what we have today, with familiar DNA and all of that, and I'm sure it comes down to funds, we should be able to figure out now who that is, because there is a family somewhere who has a loved one
who's missing.
But
was killed.
And this man, met a tragic end and is buried somewhere in Indiana. And it's maddening how many assumptions were made. I did read that there's been several highlights about how badly, and mind you,
Clearly.
a town of 700 people, the local sheriff's department or police was probably not like equipped to handle stuff like this from the beginning. They probably shouldn't have been dealing with it.
Don't be speaking ill of my Indiana people.
They should have sought help higher up, and they didn't. And it seems like due to that set this course for this to just be a befumblement of fortunate events.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it was a crazy story. Mm-hmm. You get literally saying this dude died twice, and you literally have a town that's divided, and and a sister-in-law who hates his guts.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
It was a lot of assumptions without facts.
Yeah. So, all right, Ben, what is our fourth story is very quick.
Very short.
Yeah.
We're going to be real quick on this one. This is this story of a bank robber nicknamed Fumbles. All right. July 12th, 1984. First bank robbery. This guy comes into the bank. He got his nickname Fumbles because he trips as he's coming into the bank. Trips. He pulls out a gun, trips on the carpet by the door, and drops his gun.
Yeah, the gun goes flying.
Yeah.
The reenactment actor, great.
Yeah, he did good. Picks up his gun. He robs the bank. Okay. This is in Florida. And turns out, I guess, he ends up robbing over 30 banks. And he's continued to be,
he drops money.
He drops money.
He trips over himself.
He can't keep his mask on his face.
Yeah, he seems just
he's
fumbles.
a hot mess.
Yeah, he's a hot mess express. Yeah.
He's just
very
a hot
clumsy.
Mess. But around Florida, he is robbing banks left and right throughout the 1980s. But that's literally they literally tell this story.
It's a very quick little thing. Seconds. They share his picture and they put the word out there for people. Are really, the FBI is desperate to find this guy.
Yeah. So like I said, this story is literally told in probably about 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. They don't even tell us how much money he stole. Mm-mm. And I couldn't find that. I was kind of curious. How much money did this guy steal?
30 bank rob. That's a lot of banks.
It turned out to be 33 by the time he got caught.
Yeah.
Update. He was caught. Mm-hmm. They said within minutes.
Minutes.
Of them showing this.
Good job, original Unsolved Mysteries.
Don't encourage.
This is why I love this show, is that things like this happen.
Don't encourage it. All right? Within minutes of Unsolved Mysteries showing, because no one had a life, and everyone sat around and watched this show, supposedly, because there were weirdos. Someone calls it in, and Mr. Ross James Preston, who is 23, living in Clearwater, Florida, is arrested. Mm-hmm. He ends up pleading guilty to the 33 bank robberies, but then he's only
because they pled guilty, they convicted
only of seven. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison, but he only served 13.
Yep.
He was released in 2002, I want to say. And I tried to find him after
yeah, I couldn't.
There was an arrest for a guy, and he looked a lot like him, but I don't want to
yeah.
He in Florida too for a DUI back in 2021.
Okay.
And it was around his age. I found his
could have
arrest.
Been him.
Very well could be him, but it doesn't appear he went on to continue to rob more banks. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's our bank robber. Yeah, that's it.
I wanted just that one in and quickly done because someone called in a tip.
Because you think it
I
worked.
love it. It makes me happy.
No.
I love when Unsolved Mysteries gets the bad guy.
Well,
okay.
I just wish, they would get the alien when they show these. Someone calls in I saw that UFO. It was back here.
Ben,
and someone goes
we
in there.
still have a lot of seasons ahead of us. You might be speaking too quickly.
No.
Yeah, you might be. You never know what is coming. Mm-mm. Okay, guys. Well, that is the main part of our episodes. Real quick, I want to give a huge thank you. We've gotten a handful of reviews on Apple Podcast, and they have all been really great to read. And Ben and I really do enjoy doing this. It's become a fun hobby for us. And I think we enjoy kind of getting to goof off and have some fun. And if you guys partake of it, great. But the fact that you guys are leaving reviews has just been awesome. So before we go on to the question part of our thing, I'll just give you guys our information. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can email us at unsolvedcouplepod@gmail.com. You can find our discussion group on Unsolved Couple Podcast on Facebook. Our Instagram is Unsolved Couple Pod. And tonight's question, actually, Ben came up with tonight. Ben, do you want to ask it?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Question. What's the worst job you ever had in your life?
The worst job I've ever had in my life.
And why?
The worst or the hardest?
I don't care. You pick whichever one you want.
Okay. So right after high school, I worked as a flagger. Okay. That job was summertime. The person that flips the stop and slow signs on the side of the road. So my dad works for a power company up in Oregon, and so I worked with the tree crews and the linemen. And so we're working on sometimes crazy roads. And that job, it's hard because it wasn't the worst in the fact like I was treated really well and I was paid well. And I had some fun times doing it and everything like that. I enjoyed the environment of the people I worked with. Like Ben said, I am social, so I like to make friends with everybody, and I had a good time. But it was the worst in the fact that it was by far the hardest labor I'd ever done in my life. Standing on the side of the road for several hours, flipping a sign. People are terrible drivers. They don't pay attention. And here I am, this 18-year-old girl standing in the middle of a road, sometimes a 55-mile-an-hour road, expecting people to stop. So that probably in a lot of ways was the worst in the fact that it made me, one, really appreciate manual labor. And two, it made me realize that I did not want to work that kind of work my entire life. I could not see myself doing that. The worst job I ever had was when we worked at the Hard Hat in Idaho Falls. The people we worked with, it wasn't Idaho Falls, it was Rexburg. The owner of that place was crazy.
Yeah, he was.
The manager was a psychopath who I'm pretty sure was hooking up with most of the single girls, and he was married in that restaurant. And the guy who owned it was his mother-in-law, I think. She was horrendous to work with. She was awful. I saw her enter her code one time into the kiosk. And do you know what it was?
666.
Yes. I was like, you are psycho and you know it. Anyways, that place is no longer in business anymore. And that was the worst place I ever worked at as far as the people and the environment. I don't know, man, but I've worked some bad jobs. When I worked at Forever Young, that guy is like a criminal now.
That was a pretty bad one.
Yeah. Okay. We could do a whole podcast just on that creepy, weird, family and that whole dynamic. But what about you?
Oh, I've had a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
Until I have this job that I have now. I bounced around. Like in college, I had a lot of different jobs and that. So probably the worst job, though. It wasn't even like a real job because I did real jobs and then I would do like odd job stuff on the side to make extra money and that. Like when I was in college and all that, like you did
whatever you could to make a buck. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, one of the jobs I hated the most was like stocking shelves at night at Target, you know? I mean, but I was working 3 jobs. You didn't last
very long. Yeah, that was your third job. Ben and I were engaged at that point.
Yeah, I was working that, then going to college, and then I worked 2 other jobs. I worked one on the weekends and then one during the week, and then I worked that one at night. I was doing an overnight shift, going to school, working at afternoon.
Yeah, Ben was coming to my apartment in the morning, like as I was leaving for school, to like crash for a couple hours because I lived closer to the college.
I was just trying to sleep like 2
wherever
hours.
you
Anyways,
could.
that's not the job. So this odd job that I got as like I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. I was working my normal job, but there was a little airport, not an international airport, but Hillsboro Airport. That's where I grew up, was in Hillsboro, Oregon. And there's this tiny little airport, and it's got, just little planes, and they have like a flight school there and stuff like that, right?
It's a big flight school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the airport is for. It wasn't, no one's going there to fly anywhere, right? Whatever. Well, I knew a guy that worked there. He was pretty high up there, whatever. Well, once a year, they had to do their inventory. Mm-hmm. And so he would recruit me to come do it for him. It was like a 2-week gig, and it paid really well. He paid us really well, and it was all cash under the table.
Probably because he wasn't supposed to be hiring teenagers to do his inventory.
Because the workers were supposed to be doing it, but they just didn't have the time. So there was a room, and it was a large room, and it was full of just rows of shelves. And on each shelf was these long, skinny cardboard boxes. Mm-hmm. Hundreds, if not like over 1,000 or more of these boxes. Just row after row of row. And in all these boxes, because it was the mechanics shop, are like little nuts, little bolts, little things for all the planes and the plane's engines. Well, every single one of those things had to be counted. And so I had to sit there with like scraps of paper and count. And then these boxes.
This is making my eyeballs. First off, I've never heard about this. This is the first time I've ever heard that you worked this job.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not only like it's this long box, and sometimes there was like, they would have dividers. So there's 3 in there. So you'd have to pull out the box, and then there's 3 sections, and you have to count each section, and you have to write what it is, stick the paper in. And I would do that for 8 to 10 hours a day for like 2 weeks straight.
No.
And then at the end, he'd bring in like 10 of us, and we'd all like record. And the worst part is like mechanics would come in while you're doing it, and they'd take stuff. But they were supposed to, like, if they took one, like cross out the number
doing that.
and -1 or -2.
Yeah.
But it was these tiny little things. And I would sit in this room in this tiny little row of shelves with hundreds of boxes on one. And it was like, it was like a 15-foot long row of just shelves, and I would do it all day for like 2 weeks.
That sounds like,
and I did it
my
like for
worst
2 or 3
nightmare.
years in a row. But I think he paid like $15 an hour, which back then was
That's a big
lot
deal.
of money.
Yeah.
And it was all cash under the table. So like, but yeah, it was looking back, I remember doing that, and I was like, it was the most tedious, mind-numbing job. And I think at times, like, I would completely forget what I was counting, like how many I counted.
100%.
Some of them would have like 100 or more in this tiny little box, and you have to count every single one.
No,
it was crazy. Yeah.
That's awful.
It was what you do for money, I guess, back then.
I here's the thing. Yeah, as you're even sitting here, I'm thinking like the experiences I had working at Emerge with that crazy. Like I had some terrible jobs, but it was never because of it was always usually terrible management. And that's all my bad jobs. My worst jobs were from terrible management. My hardest jobs ended up not being my worst because the people I worked with or who managed were good at what they did, which should be a reminder to people how you treat your employees.
Yeah. I don't know. I like I said, I've worked a lot of jobs. I've worked some jobs where I've come home just
dog tired. Yeah, Ben cleaned up garbage at construction sites when we were dating.
Like, I've done all kinds of jobs. Hard labor jobs.
Posts,
I've poured concrete. I've built fences. I've done a lot of crazy.
He's a man's man.
Let's not get into that. But I just think that job, I just remember it was the most mind-numbing, tedious job I've ever done in my life. It was, it was crazy.
Well, there you go. That's our show. So thank you again, everybody. And Ben and I will see you next Tuesday when we are back to recap one of the original gateway drugs into true crime.
Unsolved Mysteries.
Bye.